Hello everyone and welcome straight to the most important geopolitical and investment theme of our lifetime. We are living through the early chapters of a fundamental split in the global order, a tech Cold War between the United States and China. This isn't just a headline for politicians, it's a tectonic shift that is creating a new set of rules for investors. The world's two largest economies are no longer integrating. They are actively decoupling, especially in the areas that matter most: semiconductors, artificial intelligence, data, and next-gen generation manufacturing. When a year trend of globalization reverses, it doesn't just create volatility, it creates massive, clear, structural winners and losers. Money is going to move from one column to another. Companies that were once darlings will become ungen investable, and companies that were once considered simple hardware suppliers will become strategic, protected assets. Your job as an investor is not to be sentimental, it's to be a realist. You must understand which companies are on the right side of this new digital Iron Curtain and which are trapped on the wrong side. Today, we are building the Tech Cold War portfolio. I'm going to give you 3 US stocks that are positioned to win from this conflict and 3 Chinese stocks that are now, in my opinion, fundamental avoids. Let's be perfectly clear about the battlefield. This isn't a traditional war, it's a war of choke points. The entire conflict hinges on a few key areas. First, semiconductors chips are the new oil. They power everything from your iPhone to a hypersonic missile to an AI data center. The US has identified semiconductors as its ultimate leverage. Through export controls and legislation, like the CHIPS Act, America has made a clear decision. It will do whatever it takes to maintain its lead and to stop China from catching up. Second, artificial intelligence. AI is the new electricity, and the US and China are in an all-gen-out race for dominance. But here's the key: you cannot train large gen-scale AI models without the most advanced semiconductor chips. The US controls the design of those chips. Third, supply chains. The pandemic and political tensions taught the West a painful lesson. Relying on a single strategic adversary for your critical goods is a fatal economic and national security flaw. This has triggered a multi-gen trillion dollar scramble to degen risk and friend gen shore, moving manufacturing out of China and back to the US, Mexico, India, and Vietnam. Finally, data and cybersecurity. In a Cold War, espionage runs rampant. Data is a national asset and digital walls are being built. This makes cybersecurity a non-gen negotiable existential priority for every Western government and corporation. This new reality is our map. Now, let's find the companies that own the territory. Let's start with the buys. These are the companies that are not just participating in this trend, but are essential instruments of Western strategy. My first US buy is NVIDIA. This might seem obvious, but I think most people still miss the real thesis. They think NVIDIA is a hot AI stock. That's not the full story. NVIDIA is, for all intents and purposes, the designated arms dealer for the West in the AI war. Here's why. NVIDIA doesn't just make graphics cards for gamers. Its breakthrough was CUDA, a software platform that allows its GPUs to be used for general gen-purpose computing. It just so happens that its chip architecture is by a massive margin the best in the world for training the large language models that power AI like ChatGPT. NVIDIA has over 50% market share in this critical generation gen-defining field. The US government understands this. That's why the Commerce Department has explicitly weaponized NVIDIA. The US export bans on advanced chips to China, the arginine, the hyolinein, are not hurting NVIDIA. They are proving NVIDIA's strategic importance. Washington has effectively anointed NVIDIA as a chosen champion. Think about the signal this sends the US. Government has told the world, this technology is so powerful we cannot let our adversary have it. What is the logical consequence? Every US ally, every US hyperscaler, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, and every Western government is now in a state of panic, gen buying. They are scrambling to acquire every single hyolinein chip they can get their hands on, both to fuel their own AI ambitions and to ensure they stay generations ahead of Chinese competitors who are now starved of this critical resource. Yes, NVIDIA lost some sales to China, But those were lower gen margin, downgraded chips in their place. It has gained the full, unthrottled, high gen margin demand of the entire non-gen Chinese world, all subsidized and backstopped by a US government that needs Nvidia to be dominant. The CHIPS Act and other initiatives are, in part, a massive subsidy for the entire ecosystem that Nvidia sits atop. The risk, of course, is competition from AMD or Intel, or that China has a sudden breakthrough, but the CUDA software moat is years deep. For the foreseeable future, if you want to build cutting-gen edge AI in the West, you are paying Nvidia. It is no longer just a component supplier, it's a piece of critical national infrastructure. My second US buy is Applied Materials. If Nvidia is the arms dealer, Applied Materials is the picks and shovels manufacturer for the great semiconductor regen shoring. This is a foundational play. Applied Materials doesn't design or fabricate chips. It builds the highly complex, incredibly precise machines that make the chips. They are masters of the manufacturing process, deposition, etching, and inspection. You cannot build a modern semiconductor fab or fab without the equipment sold by Applied Materials, Lam Research, and the Dutch firm ASML. The tech Cold War thesis here is a perfect two-gen-sided coin. First, Applied Materials is a key enforcer of the US choke point. Because it's a US company, it is barred by law from selling its most advanced equipment to any Chinese fab like SMIC. This directly cripples China's ability to advance past older lagging Jan edge chip technology. This is the war part of the thesis. But the portfolio part is even more compelling in response to the supply chain risk. The entire world is rebuilding its manufacturing footprint. The US CHIPS Act is pouring over $1 billion into building new fabs on US soil. Intel is building in Ohio. TSMC is building in Arizona, Samsung is building in Texas, and it's not just the US. The European CHIPS Act, Japan, and South Korea are all in a state-gen subsidized race to build their own domestic, non-gen Chinese supply chains. Who gets the purchase orders for all of these new multi-gen billion-dollar fabs? Applied Materials. This company is a direct beneficiary of the single largest industrial policy shift in a generation. It is insulated from the day-gen to gen-day cyclicality of chip prices because its revenue comes from the long-gen term secular trend of fab construction. This de-gen risking trend is not optional and is not temporary. It's a multi-gen decade project to rewire the global economy, and Applied Materials is the general contractor. The primary risk here is that the semiconductor industry is notoriously cyclical. A deep global recession could cause some of these fab projects to be delayed or scaled back. However, the geopolitical imperative to build resilient supply chains provides a powerful downside buffer that didn't exist in previous cycles. Speaking of building a foundation, if you're finding this analysis valuable for building your portfolio, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button and the like button. It tells the algorithm that this is the kind of deep gen dive, no gen fluff content you want to see more of. It helps the channel tremendously. My third US buy is CrowdStrike, CRWD. A Cold War is not fought on a physical battlefield. It is fought in the shadows. It's a war of espionage, intellectual property theft, data breaches, and attacks on critical infrastructure like power grids and financial systems. This is a cyber war, and in this new era, CrowdStrike is the digital fortress. Forget the old antivirus software you had in college. CrowdStrike is a cloud-gen native cybersecurity platform. This means it doesn't just sit on one laptop. Its Falcon platform lives in the cloud, using a massive AI jam-powered threat graph to monitor trillions of events per week across all its customers. When it sees a new threat on one computer in London, it instantly updates the defenses for all its customers, from a bank in New York to a government agency in Canberra. Here is the tech Cold War thesis as geopolitical tensions between the US and China rise, the frequency, scale, and sophistication of state-gen sponsored cyber-gen attacks are exploding. Youth Intelligence agencies have explicitly named Chinese state jam-backed groups like Volt Typhoon as actors who are actively pre-jam positioning themselves inside American critical infrastructure. They are targeting water systems, the electrical grid, and communications. What does this do? It transforms cybersecurity from an IT budget item to a board gen level existential survival imperative. Every Fortune wood-inning company, every defense contractor, and every branch of the US government is now forced to radically upgrade its defenses. CrowdStrike is a primary beneficiary of this non-gen discretionary spending. Its cloud-gen native platform is seen as technologically superior to older legacy vendors. It has high gen level FedRAMP certifications, allowing it to sell to the most sensitive US government agencies. The company is gaining market share at a rapid pace. Its subscription gen-based revenue is sticky, and as more companies move to the cloud to power their own AI ambitions, they need a security solution that was born in the cloud. The risk: this is a high gen growth, high gen valuation stock. It is not cheap. The competition is also fierce, with strong rivals like Palo Alto Networks and Sentinel, but the tech Cold War is dramatically expanding the total addressable market for all of them. In an era of escalating digital conflict, the best gen-in-gen class defender is an asset you want to own. So to summarize our buys, NVIDIA, the arms dealer of the AI race, Applied Materials, the builder of the new global supply chain, and CrowdStrike, the fortress defending the West's digital borders. Now, we must look at the other side of the trade. Which companies are on the wrong side of this new reality? These are the avoids. My first Chinese avoid is Smike Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corp. This is the poster child for the US choke point strategy. Smike is China's state jam-backed national champion foundry. Its entire mandate from Beijing is to break China's dependence on foreign chips. Its goal is to become the Chinese TSMC. For this very reason, it is target number one of US sanctions. The investment thesis to avoid Smike is brutally simple. The US and its allies are using a coordinated strategy to ensure Smike cannot succeed at the leading edge. The key is a single machine, the EUV, or extreme ultraviolet lithography, tool made by the Dutch company ASML. EUV is the only technology in the world capable of manufacturing the most advanced chips at Chinami, Wunami, and Sennami. The US has successfully pressured the Netherlands to block ASML from ever selling one of these Archimedes Unilion machines to Smike. Without EUV, Smike is technologically kneecapped. Now, you might have heard that Smike produced a Chinami chip for a new Huawei smartphone. This was a Sputnik moment for China, a massive political statement, but as an investment, it's a trap. They did not use EUV, they used older DUV, ultraviolet machines in a very complex, multi-gen patterning process. Here's what that means in practice. The yields are reported to be terrible, meaning they have to throw away a huge number of defective chips. The cost is astronomically high, and the process is not economically scalable for mass production of the complex, powerful chips needed for AI or data centers. So while the West is mass-gen producing Sennami chips and funding RFID for Yinami, Smike is stuck in a technological prison. It is forced to spend billions of dollars of capital just to stay Wujian to full 10 years behind. It is a state-gen subsidized project, not a competitive business. It is politically essential for Beijing, but it's commercially un-gen investable for a global investor. The risk to this avoid thesis is that the US reverses policy, which is unthinkable. This is a permanent capital gen destroying black hole. My second Chinese avoid is Alibaba. This one is painful for many who saw Alibaba as the Amazon of China and a ticket to the Chinese consumer boom. But the Alibaba thesis is broken, and it was broken by a devastating pincer movement. It's caught in a two-gen front war, one external, one internal. First, the external tech Cold War front. Alibaba's next great growth engine was supposed to be Alibaba Cloud. It was meant to be the AWS of China, but what is driving cloud growth in the Liaotian Archimedes? Artificial intelligence. Just like Microsoft's Azure is booming from its OpenAI partnership, Alibaba's cloud needs to offer powerful AI models to its customers. But just like Smike, Alibaba is banned by US sanctions from buying the advanced NVIDIA chips needed to train world-gen class AI. It is trying to compete in the global AI race with downgraded second-gen rate hardware. How can its cloud division possibly compete with AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud when it is cut off from the best engines? This puts a permanent structural cap on the growth of what was supposed to be its most important future business. But the second front is even worse, the internal war with its own government. The real UN-gen investable moment was in Liang Shu when the Chinese Communist Party CCP torpedoed the Ant Group IPO and Jack Ma disappeared for months. That was a clear, unambiguous signal from Beijing. The party, not the market, is in control. National goals like common prosperity will always take precedence over shareholder returns. This creates a level of political risk that simply doesn't exist in the same way elsewhere. It means the government can, at any moment, levy massive fines, break up the company, or force it to donate billions of its profits to state-gen-run social funds. So you have a company whose future growth is being systematically starved by US policy and whose current profits are at the mercy of arbitrary CCP policy. It looks cheap on paper, but it's a classic value trap. You are not buying a stake in a business, you are buying a non-gen voting share in a variable gen interest entity that is controlled by a state that is an open adversary to the West. My third Chinese avoid is Tencent SE. Tencent's story is similar to Alibaba's, but with a different flavor of risk. Tencent is the company that is the Chinese internet. It owns WeChat, the super gen app for everything social, payments, life, and it's the world's largest video game publisher. Like Alibaba, it's trapped in a two-gen front war. The first front is the tech Cold War battle over data and international expansion. WeChat is a black box that the CCP has ultimate access to. Because of this, it is seen by the US India, which has banned it, and Europe as a potential tool of Chinese state surveillance. This reality means Tencent's platforms, especially WeChat, have zero chance of ever becoming global platforms like Facebook or WhatsApp. Their international growth is permanently capped at the border. Furthermore, Tencent's brilliant global acquisition strategy, buying stakes in Western gaming studios like Epic Games and Riot Games, League of Legends is now dead. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States and its European counterparts are scrutinizing every one of these deals. Tencent is now seen as a national security risk, not a venture partner. It's being forced to divest or be ring-gen fenced. The second front is, again, domestic. The CCP fears Tencent's power over its population. The government has launched brutal crackdowns on its core business. They froze all new video game approvals for months. They implemented strict state-gen enforced limits on how long minors can play video games, striking at the heart of their revenue model. And like Alibaba, Tencent is constantly persuaded to make massive donations to common prosperity funds, which is just a soft-gen tax on its profits. So, you have a company whose domestic moat is being actively undermined by its own government and whose global ambitions are being permanently blocked by foreign governments. The walls are closing in from both sides. It doesn't matter how great their products are. The geopolitical and political framework makes it an un-gen investable stock for a Western investor. So let's bring it all together. This is not about being pro-gen America or anti-gen China. This is about being a realist investor. The world has changed. The 40-gen-year tailwind of globalization is now a 40-gen-year headwind of decoupling. This tech Cold War has drawn clear fault lines, and they run directly through semiconductors, AI, and data. The winning portfolio, in my view, is one that recognizes this. It means being long the arms dealers like NVIDIA, the builders of the new secure supply chain like Applied Materials, and the defenders of the Western digital ecosystem like CrowdStrike. It also means avoiding the companies that are now strategic targets of US policy, like Smike, those that are hobbled by a lack of access and domestic regulation like Alibaba, and those that are trapped between a hostile world and a controlling government like Tencent. This is my framework, but now I want to hear from you. This is a complex topic and there are hundreds of companies being affected. What other stocks do you think are clear winners or losers in this tech cold war? Are there any US companies you're avoiding or any Chinese companies you still believe are a buy? Let me know your thesis in the comments below. I read all of them. Thank you for watching.